You're telling me they eat those things alive? Ambassador Trinks clicked his mandibles sharply, a universally understood gesture of disbelief among the Vixid. His compound eyes scanned the humans across the negotiation table, his antennae twitching. The Vixid were no strangers to cultural differences, but what he had just heard was nearly too much to process. Across from him, Major Dominic Kane leaned back in his chair, his posture a picture of nonchalance. The human officer merely shrugged. "Not always," Kane replied, his tone as casual as if he were discussing the weather. "Sometimes we boil them first." The room fell into a heavy silence. Representatives from 7 galactic species exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from horror to morbid fascination. For centuries, humanity had been an anomaly, a latecomer to the galactic stage, technologically inferior compared to the older species. Yet, somehow, they had become impossible to ignore. Trinks struggled to reconcile humanity's apparent primitiveness with their inexplicable dominance on the battlefield. Every time they fought, they won. It defied logic. Now here they were again, negotiating the terms of yet another surrender, this time from the Xantrex horde, a race once considered unstoppable. At the far end of the table, General Arl, the towering Xantrex representative, loomed ominously. His chitinous exoskeleton shimmered in the dim light, and his mandibles twitched in barely restrained fury as he glared at Kane. "Your species is barbaric," Arl hissed. "You flaunt every galactic standard of conduct. You turn war into a spectacle. And yet," he paused, his voice vibrating with frustration, "you win." Kane leaned forward slightly, folding his arms across his chest, a ghost of a smirk playing on his face. "You're asking the wrong question, General," Kane said. "It's not about how we win. It's about why we fight. That's the part you'll never understand." The tension in the room was palpable. Trinks opened his mandibles to interject, hoping to diffuse the situation. But Kane was already tapping a small device on the table. A hologram flickered to life, projecting a vivid image of Earth, a blue and green orb teeming with life, surrounded by the vast emptiness of space. "This," Kane said, gesturing to the hologram, "is home. It's messy, chaotic, and loud, but it's ours. Every inch of it." His voice took on a steely edge. "We don't fight for conquest or glory. We fight because anything that threatens our home has to go through us first." Arl growled, his massive claws flexing. "Sentimentality is weakness. Your kind should have been eradicated the moment you set foot on the galactic stage." Kane's smirk vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating expression. "Funny thing about humans, General," he said softly. "We tend to take threats personally." Before Arl could respond, the chamber door burst open, and a young lieutenant, human of course, strode in with urgent determination. "Sir," the lieutenant said, saluting sharply, "we've intercepted another Xantrex fleet. Looks like they're making a last-ditch effort to break our blockade." Kane rose from his seat, his expression unreadable. "Guess the meeting's over then," he said, turning to the galactic representatives. "You might want to stick around. This won't take long." Humanity at war. The humans moved with unnerving efficiency, their disciplined coordination a stark contrast to the chaotic energy that seemed to define their species. Within minutes, Kane and his officers were aboard the Resolve, Earth's flagship, preparing for battle. Trinks, curious despite himself, followed reluctantly, his multiple legs clicking nervously against the metallic deck. In the Resolve's command center, holographic displays illuminated the room, mapping the movements of the incoming Xantrex fleet. They were fast, faster than anything Earth had built, but Kane seemed unfazed. "Launch the decoys," Kane ordered. A series of small, unmanned ships shot out from the Resolve, broadcasting human fleet signatures. The Xantrex ships adjusted course immediately, drawn to the false targets like moths to a flame. "You rely on deception," Trinks observed, his tone a mixture of curiosity and disapproval. Kane chuckled grimly. "We call it strategy. Why waste lives when you can confuse the enemy into fighting shadows? The Xantrex ships opened fire, obliterating the decoys in a blaze of energy bolts. As they did, hidden human vessels, equipped with cloaking technology stolen and enhanced from their adversaries, unleashed devastating volleys of railgun fire. Entire squadrons of Xantrex ships disintegrated before they even realized they were under attack. But the humans weren't finished. "Deploy the kinetic rods," Kane commanded. Trinks tilted his head. "Kinetic what?" "You'll see." From orbit, long tungsten rods were released, descending toward the Xantrex fleet at hypersonic speeds. They struck with the force of small nuclear explosions, bypassing shields designed to deflect energy weapons. Trinks watched in stunned silence as the once formidable Xantrex fleet crumbled under the relentless assault. "You use primitive weapons," Trinks muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. And yet, Kane finished for him, "they work." The weight of survival. The battle in orbit lasted less than an hour. The Xantrex fleet was annihilated, its survivors retreating into the void. On the bridge of the Resolve, the human crew erupted in cheers, but Kane remained silent, staring at the tactical display with a pensive expression. "Doesn't this victory bring you satisfaction?" Trinks dared to ask. Kane turned to him, his gaze sharp. "It's not about satisfaction. It's about survival. Every species in the galaxy looks at us and sees a problem. We're too unpredictable, too aggressive, too human. So they come at us, one after another, thinking they can teach us a lesson. And every time, we prove them wrong." Trinks clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Humanity's resilience was unlike anything he had encountered. They didn't just adapt, they thrived under pressure, turning every disadvantage into an opportunity. As if to underscore the point, an alert sounded across the ship. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "Xantrex forces are regrouping near Cygnus 5. A planetary-scale assault is imminent. Civilian populations on the surface are vulnerable." Kane's jaw tightened. "How far out are we?" 2 hours at maximum speed, sir." "Plot the course," Kane ordered. He turned to Trinks. "You wanted to know why we're granted those diplomatic exceptions? You're about to see. Battle for Cygnus 5. The Resolve and its accompanying fleet surged toward Cygnus 5, moving in flawless synchronization. Trinks was struck by the humans' lack of ceremony. There were no grand speeches, no pre-battle rituals. They simply prepared, each crew member knowing their role with precision. When the fleet emerged from hyperspace, Cygnus 5 filled the viewport, a lush, temperate world teeming with life. But the sight was marred by the presence of a Xantrex assault carrier, flanked by dozens of smaller warships. The assault carrier bristled with weaponry, its shields shimmering faintly against the starlight. "They're already deploying ground forces," the tactical officer reported, pointing to a live feed of Xantrex landing craft descending toward the planet's surface. "Not on my watch," Kane said darkly. "Ready the strike teams?"